In conversation with Niki Hardy. Niki Hardy is the author of Audi Award nominated Breathe Again and 1 Minute Prayer for Women with Cancer. A new book, God Can We Shout? A daringly honest guide to growing closer to God, one doubt at a time. It's the Chef's March 2025. Nick has been featured in places like the Hallmark Channel, Life Today, Relevant Magazine, 100 Huntley Street, and Premier Radio. Having left corporate life, been to seminary, moved continent, planted churches, started businesses, a non-profit, navigated loss, cancer, church hurt, and painful uncertainty, she firmly believes God loves a cheerful doubter. Nikki lives in North Carolina with her husband, ridiculous Doodle, Charlie, who is the main reason their three grown kids come home. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy and excitement to have on the show today, Niki Hardy. How are you doing today, Nikki?
I'm great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm very excited we're here, really. And I'm also, you have such an amazing bio, quite beautiful reading through that. And it's amazing we're here to sit down and have a conversation around your work. So thank you very much for coming up again.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
My joy, really. So, Nikki, I'd like us to start today's conversation by you telling us about the making of your book, God, Can We Chat? Which I found the title name to be quite compelling, quite amazing, quite conversational, quite poetic even in its nature, and very beautiful. And, from that title itself, I think there's a lot encapsulated in it. I think there's a lot embedded in it. I think it's something that can be interpreted in a quite diverse, huge, lovely, in-depth manner. And I'd like you to tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Well, it really came about because I got to the place in my faith and my relationship with God where I had to kind of sit down and just say, God, can we chat? And it was coming out of a place where I felt like my faith was dying from a thousand paper cuts,
Mm,
as if I was feeling disillusioned and disappointed. I had questions and doubts and needed to talk to God about it because I had dived into theology, I had dived into His Word, and just got to this place where I felt like I was at the crossroads and I didn't want to go down the faith route. It felt too rigid, like I could no longer say yes to a lot of the things that I had to say yes to, and I was questioning what I had always believed. But at the same time, I didn't want to go down the doubt route because that was taking me somewhere I didn't want to go. My faith was too precious to me. And I got to
mm,
really saying to God, I once was found, but now I'm lost. That
mm.
well-known hymn, Amazing Grace,
Yeah,
now the
that's great.
opposite was true. And so it was like, God, can we chat? Because I don't know what to do. And it turned out that when we go to God, our questions and our doubts become our faith's superpower, not something that will destroy our faith or take us away from
Mm.
God. But we know our questions hold power, but we assume it's to destroy our faith. But no, it's to build it and bring us closer to God.
Oh, well, I must say that is such an amazing, such an uncommon, such a beautiful and lovely ride and introduction into becoming an author. That's an amazing, lovely gateway and open door into becoming an author and writer. And that's such an amazing story you've shared with us. And I like the fact that you even had to incorporate, yeah, I was once lost, but now I'm found, which I think it's quite beautiful and quite awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And Nikki, you've gone through some incredibly tough seasons. And I mean, incredibly, extremely tough seasons from cancer to grief and life upheaval. I wanted to ask you, how did those experiences shape the way you talk to God now compared to how you did before in the past? If in any way, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think I've always had a pretty open and honest relationship with God. And when I went through cancer, having lost my mum and my sister to cancer, There were times when I was angry. There were times when I couldn't feel God's presence. And like a teenager, I said, well, if you're not talking to me, I'm not talking to you. But now I think I'm more willing to live in a place of mystery, of not knowing, holding on to what I do know of God, and being even more real and authentic with Him. And just rather than doing life for God, doing life with
With
God. And
God.
that's been an enormous shift.
Mm,
And trying to be more like the psalmists, who, when you read the Psalms, they're like, God, where are you? How long? What are you doing? I can't believe it's worked out like this. And then in the next verse, they're like, but I trust you. I know that you are good. And then they go back again and they say, but will smite my enemies? And then, but you are good. And so I'm trying to live in that constant tension of
mm,
feeling my feelings and being real with them about to God, but also trusting in His goodness at the same
mm.
time, however uncomfortable that is.
I like the fact that you had to use an sample of the psalmist in there because I can relate to it myself. Like, God, how far are you? Are you near? Are you listening anymore? How far do I need to tread this path unknowingly? Are you there close? I mean, all those questions of David, yeah, because I myself that write poetry,
Yeah.
I've had so many people compared my A Cry for Mercy. So it feels like the word of a psalm. It feels
Mm.
psalmist in nature, feels like a literary prophet who is seeking, who is yearning, who is asking so many questions and asking, when is this going to? So I can relate to you mentioning all of that. And I love the statement you make in there, living life rather for God, but you're living life with God, which I think it's quite very amazing and really makes a
Mm.
huge difference quite amazingly. Oh, that's an amazing answer you've got it. And I think it's even quite inspiring for people who have been through such an experience that you've gone through yourself in the past, helping them to see and
Mm.
have a different perception of how they would, react and think in that manner, which I think it's quite amazing as well. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I think we get to this place where we've been living for God, we've been doing all the right things, and we've been having our quiet time and reading the Bible and going to church and serving. But there's still buried within that a sense that we have to do it for God, maybe to earn His approval or
Yeah,
even our salvation, or just to be better. And although we are called to be transformed by the renewing of our minds and
yeah,
to grow in our
romance.
Christ-likeness, that is more of a byproduct of us doing life with God. We don't have to earn anything with God. That's why we can come to Him with our doubts and our questions,
Mm,
because we think, oh, I'm the only one with questions, or I can't tell God that, or I need proof and answers to be sure. And that's just not true. That's doing life for God. But when we do life with God,
with God.
He's like, come on, walk with me, talk with me,
Mm,
come to me,
mm.
all you who are weary and heavy laden,
Hold
and
my
I will give you
hands.
rest.
Oh wow, walk with me. This is so I sing, I'm a musician, and this is so therapeutic. This is so relatable for me. Because I know of a song called Walk With Me. Yeah. It's so amazing. I play them sometimes on my violin. Walk with me.
Mm,
Quite lovingly. And I must say this is such an amazing conversation. I love your answers to these
good,
questions. Yeah, I do love them.
good.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, Nikki, there is a part of the book where you talk about silence. Those moments when it feels like God isn't answering, when it feels like God isn't even there listening, when it feels as if, his eyes are seemingly far away from seeing what people are going through. How do you personally
Mm.
navigate through those times? I like your answer to that.
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things that I do when I feel like I can't hear God's voice or sense His presence. Is one, I remind myself that just because I can't feel Him doesn't mean He's not here. I
Mm,
remind myself that just because it feels like He's on mute, my prayers are hitting the ceiling, I know that every prayer is
mm,
goes up to heaven and He hears it. So I have to remind myself of that my feelings aren't necessarily the truth. And
Mm,
then I look back to times in my life when I've heard him, when I felt him. So it's like
mm,
I draw on that. No, no, he is real. He is listening. So I have that kind of experience. I have this almost like this credit, of
mm,
experience and him hearing his voice. And I keep
mm.
trying to press in. And I go to the places where, Celtic or spirituality people would call them thin places, but it's these places, whether they're geographical or emotional, or where, if you like, the divide between heaven and earth is thinner. And for me, that's nature. When I get into God's creation, it's more easy. It's easier for me to feel his presence
Mm,
in his creation, because there's a sense of awe and wonder, which opens
mm.
me up. I can see his creation. For some people, it's music and poetry. For some people, it's his
Yeah.
word. For some people, it's community. But
Mm,
wherever you historically see yourself encountering God more readily, more, and you are more open, put yourself in the way of those
yeah.
experiences.
Mm.
And so that can help as well.
Wow. That's such an amazing answer you got in there. And I love it. I love them so much. It is so amazing. It is so real. And I think this is something that is even going to help the reader. Because life sometimes can be so unpredictable. We like, yeah, yeah, we like life to be quite fine, beautiful, awesome, want to smile and laugh. But there's some period whereby we're left with no, option than to shed tears. We are left with no
Mm,
option than to just stay all alone. There are some times when we are left in
mm,
that lonely, dark period. Sometimes you may have to navigate and walk it all alone by yourself. Sometimes you may need to
mm,
hold somebody by the end, but then you connect into the faith and say, God, I want you to be. So it is such an amazing experience and time. And sometimes we need to sit down and understand, okay, why are all of these things happening? What do I do? Quite beautiful. And I like the fact that you have to use the word poetry. Some people, it might be
mm,
music. Some people, it might be nature. And all of that. Recently, I've been craving. I asked my friend, please, is there any sea around Leeds? Because I want to go to the
mm.
seaside. I want to hear the
Yeah.
sound of the ocean wave because it is
Mm,
so therapeutic for me. It is so soothing. One of the ways I find soothing word is here in playing my violin because I love the sound of the
yeah.
string instrument. It is so comforting. There's this kind of unexplainable joy and excitement and
Yeah.
satisfaction that it gives that is quite unexplainable. Same with writing, same with poetry. But
Mm,
then I said, I would also like to go to the seaside. I want to hear
yeah.
the sound of the ocean. I want to see the ocean. I want to walk by the seabed, and pick some
Mm,
cowrie shell. It is so lovely for me. So yeah, I can relate to all of those things you mentioned. It's
good.
so amazing, Nikki.
Good.
So amazing, really. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you. And also, you also touch on the importance of creating space for silence and listening, especially in a noisy world that we have currently.
Mm,
How do you personally quiet down enough to actually hear from God? I'm not sure if this is like a
mm.
personal question.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really important question because it's different for everyone. We
Yeah,
all find quiet in different ways.
yeah.
And in the book, God Can We Chat, I lead people through a guided conversation they can have with God about their questions and about their doubts, whether it's, why did you answer their prayer, not my prayer, whatever it might be. And it uses the acronym CHAT, but it does require us to find stillness that we can chat with God and hear his
Mm,
voice. And
mm,
so for me, what I've actually found is that I know it says be still and know that I am God, but I find my mind is stiller,
mm.
stops worrying, and it's like monkey brain as they call it, when they could chatter, 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 chatter.
All over the
When,
place.
when yeah, when my body is moving.
Mm.
So my brain stills when my body moves. For other people, their body needs to be still in order for their brain to be still. And I'm learning to be still in a chair or just sitting in front of a view. But I do find that when I am walking in nature, walking my lovely but rather ridiculous doodle, Charlie, who's under the desk right now, it's at those times I have to, say I'm not going to take my phone. I'm not going to
Mm.
have headphones in and let
Absolutely.
my mind wander. And God often
Absolutely.
speaks through his creation. I'll
Mm.
notice something and feel like God is speaking through it in some way. So for me,
Mm.
um, it's often a conversation I have with him as I'm moving, as I'm walking. But I
Mm.
think for it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
There's
That,
no one way.
absolutely. That's an amazing answer you gave. Because sometimes I want to talk more about the headphone and the phone sometimes the mobile phones can be a huge sense of distraction most of the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Most of the time, having your headphone off of your head, either you're driving or you're doing it, can be so helpful. I know music, it's fine, yeah. Most people listen to music on it. It's quite beautiful. But sometimes you just need to bring yourself out from the headphone, the social media, so you can perceive,
Hmm.
breathe in new air, and get it from there. You get to get some very lovely inspirations, ideas coming in,
Mm.
flowing through. Yeah, I realize
Mm.
I think about that for the past 1 week. It's quite very
Mm.
helpful. And I think it's something I really need to utilize myself to my life because social media can be very addictive and very
Yes,
distracting.
it really can. And I follow a lot of people on social media, and I am on social media, not as often as I probably should be, but to encourage people. And I read online devotions, and that helps me
Mm,
um, meet with God. But at the same time, nothing can replace my one-to-one encounter with him. There's a
yeah.
difference, and there's a different place for reading what somebody else thinks God is saying
Mm,
to me asking what he is
what you
saying to
say? Oh
me.
wow.
So
Mm,
even with worship music, there are times when I can't hear what God is saying because I'm focusing on the lyrics and singing the
yeah,
worship songs.
yeah,
And that's great when you want to worship God.
yeah, yeah.
But when you also want to listen, there are times to dial it back a little bit.
Mm.
Unless, that's the way that God speaks to you.
Mm, oh wow. This is such an amazing answer you've got in there. Quite beautiful and quite awesome. I can relate to it quite heavily. I love
Good.
it. Thank you very much for sharing with. This is so helpful, really. Very
Good.
helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Now I wanted to ask you because one beautiful thread throughout is that prayer is about relationship, between one person and another, not performance, yeah? Now, for someone who is new to faith, or say returning after a long time away from faith, where do you think they can begin with for a starter?
But I think a great place to start is with honesty. It's
Mm,
simply chatting with God. There's no formula, there's no special words, you don't have to use religious language. It's just chatting with God like you would a
mm,
friend. And, I always say the only silly prayer is the one you don't pray because God
mm,
wants to hear everything. And yes, He knows what's on our hearts anyway, but He
mm,
loves us to tell Him in the same way,
mm,
a great parent wants to know how you're doing and what you're struggling with and what your needs are. And His arms are wide open for us. So, lots of people have written fantastic books on prayer. But help is a great prayer. Thank you is a great prayer. Wow is a great prayer. I need you, God, is a great prayer. So just starting, I think we can get our knickers in a twist, thinking, oh, I've got to, put aside an hour to pray, and it's like no, start small, build up, and you don't forget you're doing life with God, not for God, and you
God.
can just chat with Him the whole time. I find journaling can be helpful to hear
Yeah.
his voice,
Mm,
um, because and I try and journal as if it's his speaking, in God's voice. And most of it's not him, most of it's me
mm,
and wishful thinking. But in there are the threads of what he's saying. And that can be helpful too for somebody who's either coming back to their relationship with God or is new in their relationship.
mm. Wow, that's an amazing one, really. This is such an amazing one, quite educative as well. I mean, I've learned a lot from this conversation. From some of your choice of words, I can find some word lyrics, some song lyrics that I'm so much
Mm.
used to come
Oh.
into my head. And I was like, oh, yeah, I would love to, pick up this later. I'd love to sing this later. Quite amazing and quite lovely. Thank you very much, really.
Oh, you're welcome. You'll have to sing me your worship song.
I would love to when we are done with the interview. Quite amazing, really. Quite amazing. Now, apart from God Can We Chat, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on? Also, what kind of feedback have you gotten so far from people who have read God Can We Chat?
Yeah, I've had some amazing feedback, which is great. Feedback about people being able to feel free to come to God with their questions. And especially given I give people a practical step-by-step guide to actually chatting with God and lead people through a
Mm,
number of different questions and things that they might have. So that's been really, really helpful to hear how much it's helped people in their relationship with God. But
mm,
my other books you asked about, my first book was Breathe Again: How to Live Well When Life Falls Apart. And
mm,
that's really about finding God's abundant life in the hardest times and not waiting for life to get better. How do we thrive and not just survive? And in that, I share a bit of my story, a bit of other people's stories, and often forgotten women of the Bible story as well. And
mm,
then I was asked to write 1 minute prayers for women with cancer, which
mm,
is exactly what it says it is. So those are my
mm,
other two books. And God Can We Chat came out in the spring of 25 earlier this year. And
mm,
so, but what I'm working on now is more the idea and how do we connect spirituality, science, and nature. So, how
wow.
do we engage with God and encounter God in nature?
Mm.
And I write on Substack
Oh.
there about that, doing more and more in that space, and looking to do a podcast
Mm,
that is currently called, in my brain, it's called Wildly Known, but it might also change to That's Wild. So
mm.
you'll have to wait and see.
Wow.
But that's more of what I'm leaning into. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a nature nerd.
Wow, that's amazing to know, really. Quite beautiful to know. And just in case we have some viewers who are watching this interview and would love to get a copy of God Can We Chat, on what platform
Mm.
is it available on for purchase?
Well, it's available wherever you normally buy your books, whether that's your local bookstore. They might have to order it. Not every bookstore can carry every book. Amazon, and if you go to my website,
Yeah.
nikihardy.com, or you'll find it there. And everything God Can We Chat is on godcanwechat.com. So if people go to God Can We Chat, they can actually start reading today by downloading the first 3 chapters. And so they'll get those
Mm.
straight in their inbox and be able to start reading immediately.
That's amazing. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Niki Hardy book directly on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, on our website, and also on other platforms. I also left a link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Niki, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say, it's such an amazing, lovely conversation. Having you talk about God Can We Chat, this is so inspiring to me. It is so educative. It is so awesome. I learned a lot, and it is so therapeutic
Good.
as well. I mean, there's a lot we've unraveled. There's a lot we've embedded. There's a lot we've discussed through this conversation. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming on to talk about it.
You're welcome. It's been great to be here and meet everyone.
Yeah, my pleasure as well.